Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Starting off today with a story that proves karma doesn't sleep, especially when a cyclist finds their lane completely blocked by a badly parked work van. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. Blocked bike lane? Cue the midnight consequences. There's a street I ride down constantly, and it has one of those bike lanes squeezed between the parallel parking strip and a sidewalk with a curb high enough to practically need climbing gear to get over. In other words, if something blocks that lane, you're stuck. You either risk your life swerving into traffic or haul your bike over a curb built like a miniature retaining wall. And of course, people park in the bike lane all the time, not just occasionally, not once in a blue moon. I mean, every single time I pass through, at least one car's wedged halfway into it, like the driver couldn't be bothered to turn the wheel 2 inches. It creates dangerous situations constantly, and, bonus round, it's completely illegal. But apparently that doesn't stop anyone. One night around 3 a.m., I was heading home from a bar. Good ride, crisp air, just me and the road, until I saw it. A giant work van parked not just slightly in the bike lane, but fully, aggressively, unapologetically blocking the entire thing. Nose practically kissing the curb. If he'd tried to wedge it any tighter, he'd have needed hydraulic equipment. And of course, that meant I'd have to either play traffic roulette or deadlift my bike onto the sidewalk like I was auditioning for the world's saddest strongman competition. Maybe it was the time of night, maybe it was the liquid courage, maybe it was simply the fact that this was the worst parking job I'd seen yet. But as I stared at this van, I noticed something beautiful. The guy had plastered his business information all over the vehicle, giant phone number, company name, contact details. It was like a billboard that screamed, "Please call me anytime." So I did. It took multiple tries for him to pick up. Apparently, even people who block bike lanes value their sleep. But eventually, on the third or fourth attempt, a groggy, confused voice answered. He sounded like he'd just been yanked out of the best dream of his life. I kept my voice calm, polite even. "Hi," I said, "you've parked your van entirely in the bike lane. Could you please come move it?" Then I hung up. No explanation, no chance for him to argue, no room for him to pull the classic "I'm only blocking it for a minute" line. Just the information he needed and the consequences of his actions delivered directly to his pillow in the middle of the night. I didn't stick around to see if he actually got out of bed and moved it. I wasn't looking for a confrontation. I wasn't looking for a fight. I just wanted that small, warm spark of satisfaction that comes from interrupting someone's sleep for inconveniencing an entire lane of traffic. I lifted my bike onto the sidewalk, maneuvered around the van, and continued my ride home feeling, honestly, pretty damn pleased with myself. Did my petty revenge make the bike lane safer? Probably not. But did waking him up at 3 a.m. to deal with the consequences of his own awful parking make my night just a little better? Absolutely. You don't know if he moved it, you don't know if he was furious, and that doesn't matter. The act was complete the moment you hung up. The goal wasn't to change his behavior long-term, though one can hope. The goal was to restore a sense of balance to the universe in that single moment. Well played, OP. And our second story. I will tell you how this deal works. One early spring, I decided to sell our travel trailer. It was only a few years old, looked new inside and out, priced right, and it was prime time of the year to sell. I knew it would be gone after a showing or two. The first family shows up after an odd phone call. The wife does all the talking, but made it clear that her husband, Glenn, makes the decisions in the family. She asks a ton of questions on the phone so she could give the info to Glenn. Glenn is in the room with her as this is going on. Weird, but whatever. They roll in, and I meet Glenn. He tries to avoid eye contact and is trying to play a power game. The wife and kids are in love with the camper, polite and friendly. Glenn's a jerk. As I answer his questions, he occasionally smirks. At this point, I'm not interested in selling him dog crap fresh from my backyard. But I'm not lowering myself to his behavior. I give him the respect he does not deserve, taking the high road since his poor wife and kids don't need to see me telling him to GTFO. Eventually, Glenn says, "I'm going to be giving you X dollars. We'll be back next weekend with the check." He barks at his wife and kids to get back in the car. I tell him that I did not agree to any price. Maybe it'll still be around next weekend, maybe not. He smirks again and drives away. Glenn's price was exactly what I would have accepted from any potential buyer who was not a jerk. At that point, I was clear about one thing. Glenn will never end up with my camper because, well, you know. The next day, a couple shows up to look at the trailer. They are slack-jawed at the price and condition and ask what I'll take for it as they can meet me later in the day with cash. I offer to sell it to them for Glenn's price. A few hours later, I have a fat stack of $100 bills in hand, and they leave with the trailer, thrilled with the deal. The next Friday, just as I expected, Glenn's abused wife calls. She tells me they got a loan and want to pick the trailer up tomorrow. I play dumb and ask what she means. After she explains it again, I drop a bomb. So sorry, but it's gone. I tell her that all Glenn had to do was respectfully offer the amount he told me I would be taking, then leave a deposit check, and you'd be picking up your camper tomorrow. I reminded her that she was standing there when I told Glenn that we had not agreed to a price, and it was still very much for sale to whomever wanted it. Finally, I told her to make sure that Glenn knows that it's sold for his price the next day. So sad. Seems that Glenn was a jerk who got the jerk on this one. What strikes me, beside Glenn just being a jerk, is that he wanted to offer a non-negotiable price and then come back in a week to pay. And our next story. I learned the hard way that some people don't want help. They want a handout. My friend proved it. My husband's a manager at a certain large chain store. Not naming it for obvious reasons. They were hiring, and I casually mentioned it to a friend of mine who'd been complaining nonstop about how she was struggling with money and desperately needed a job. I wasn't trying to play hero. I just thought, hey, opportunity's knocking. Maybe I can help her open the door. My husband said he could get her a first interview, no problem. He could put her resume in the right hands and make sure she got the chance to sit down with the hiring manager. But from that point on, she'd have to move forward the same way every other candidate did, meaning she'd still have to do well in that first interview, get invited to the second, and actually earn the job. No shortcuts, no special treatment, just a fair shot. Honestly, I thought that was incredibly reasonable. It's more than most people get. Nothing in life should just fall into your lap because you know someone. And my husband wasn't about to risk his reputation or his position by handing someone a job they hadn't proven they were qualified for. So I explained this clearly to my friend. Her reaction? Well, what's the point in that when he could just give me the job if he wanted to? That's a waste of my time. Don't you think I have better things to do? I thought you guys were trying to help me out here. I just sat there blinking at my phone, wondering if she hit her head that morning. Help her? Yes. Magically fast-track her into a job she hadn't applied for, interviewed for, or proven she could do? Absolutely not. She seemed genuinely offended that she would have to put in the bare minimum effort, just like literally everyone else. Needless to say, she never sent in her information for the first interview. She dropped the whole opportunity completely. But the story doesn't end there. Oh no. A few days later, a mutual friend reached out to ask what happened because apparently this girl was running her mouth, telling people I'm not the type of friend who can be trusted to have your back during tough times. According to her, I don't want anyone to do better than me in life, so I hold everyone else down. I just stared at my screen in disbelief. She went from, I need help finding a job, to you're sabotaging my life in under 48 hours. All because she didn't get a free job handed to her like a party favor. The entitlement is absolutely unreal. I try to help someone, and suddenly I'm the villain because I expected her to put in any effort at all. She really acted like she deserved a manager-level favor without lifting a finger. At this point, I've learned my lesson. Some people don't want help. They want shortcuts. And when you don't hand them one, they twist the story to make themselves the victim. My conscience is clean. I did what a friend should do. She's the one who chose to stay exactly where she is. Your friend suffers from perpetual victimhood. The whole world owes her, and if they don't hand it to her, it's never her fault. Thank God she didn't go through with it. I bet she's a terrible employee, and you'd be in a tough spot if you had to fire her. And our last story. Rich neighbors think they own the neighborhood. I live on a quiet street where nobody bothers anyone, except the rich family across from us who act like they own the entire block by divine inheritance. They're the type who walk around with that permanent, we fundraisers at the country club confidence. You know exactly the type. Between my house and my next-door neighbor's place, there's an empty lot. Important detail, that lot belongs to my next-door neighbor, not me, and definitely not the rich family across the street. They're saving that land for their grandkids one day. It has nothing to do with the people across from us, but the rich neighbors decided to plant a massive American flag right in the middle of that lot anyway. They already have a giant flag mounted on their own house, so it wasn't patriotism, it was flexing. They never asked permission, they just marched over and shoved a flagpole into someone else's private property like colonialism was back in style. Still, it wasn't my land, so I stayed out of it. Not my circus, not my lot. Then they made it my problem. One day I came home and nearly drove over a full-size skateboard ramp sitting across the end of my driveway. Not next to it, not near it, across my driveway, blocking me from even turning in. Worse, a group of kids, including their own, were taking turns grinding down my concrete like it was the local recreation center. Boards were slamming, wheels were squealing, and one kid face-planted so hard he slid under the side of my car. Their dad, whom we'll call Brad because he radiates pure Brad energy, just stood there with his arms crossed and sunglasses on like he was supervising workers instead of letting children destroy my property. The next day was even worse. I woke up to loud banging and screaming outside. I opened the blinds, and there they were. 6 kids skating, eating snacks, dropping water bottles, and leaving scuff marks across my driveway like they were competing for the Neighborhood Menace Olympics. Brad waved lazily from across the street. "Hope it's not a problem," he called out like he was doing me a favor. I shouted back, "Move the ramp." He just shrugged. "Relax, man. Kids need space." I tried reasoning with him a second time after seeing the ramp appear yet again that week. "Hey, move it. This is my driveway." He didn't even stop wiping down his oversized truck. "It's fine where it is." I repeated, "Move it." He finally looked at me and said, "It's a free street. Don't be dramatic." Apparently, the rules of private property didn't apply to the king of the cul-de-sac. What made it worse was my own family acting like I was the villain. My mom said, "Let them play. It's harmless." My sister chimed in, "You're being too harsh." Meanwhile, I'm out here trying to get in and out of my house without running over children or a giant wooden hazard. One afternoon, I came home from the grocery store and found the ramp shoved so close to my driveway I would have literally crushed it if I pulled in. A teenage boy tried to wave me into parking on the street. I parked, grabbed my bags, and ignored them. Inside the house, I decided I was done being the nice neighbor. 2 days later, the ramp was back, so I dragged it onto the public street and took pictures, time-stamped, before and after, clear proof it wasn't damaged. Brad marched across like a rooster ready to fight. "Don't touch my property again," he snapped. I held up my phone. "Then stop leaving it on mine." "My kids need room," he barked. "You have a backyard," I shot back. "We redid the yard to fit a jacuzzi," he said like that was somehow my problem. "Congratulations," I said. "Now stop using my driveway." He puffed up like a balloon about to pop. "Touch it again and see what happens." I smiled. "I'll be documenting every incident." "Have a good day, Brad." He stormed off. When the ramp appeared again, I called the non-emergency police line. I explained everything calmly, repeated trespassing, photos, video, witnesses, prior warnings. To my surprise, the officer said, "We'll send someone out." 2 officers arrived, took my statement, reviewed the photos and video, and walked over to Brad's mansion of entitlement. I stood on my porch while they knocked. His wife answered first, then Brad showed up looking annoyed. "What now?" he snapped. The officer gestured at the ramp. "We're here about a trespassing complaint." Brad tried to spin it as community space. The officer cut him off. "Sir, the driveway is not public. You cannot place objects on it or allow your children to use it." Brad got red in the face and shouted, "It's ridiculous." The officer calmly replied, "If this happens again, you will be formally trespassed. Any violation after that can result in a citation or arrest." The silence that followed was beautiful. Brad sputtered but didn't have anything useful to say. The officers wrote a warning, handed him the paperwork, and told him he was officially barred from stepping foot or placing anything on my driveway. The ramp hasn't returned. The kids have retreated to whatever space is left in their backyard kingdom, probably skating around the jacuzzi like little suburban goblins. And now, every time Brad steps outside and sees me, he shoots a look that could strip paint off a wall. I just smile and wave. Brad was testing boundaries, seeing how much of the neighborhood he could annex into his personal fiefdom. The flag on the empty lot was the opening move. The ramp on your driveway was the escalation. He wasn't just being lazy, he was asserting dominance, and you recognize that reasoning with a person like that's trying to water a plastic plant. It's a pointless exercise. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.